Hello everyone, and welcome to Spinnaker Spoilercasts, Episode 1. This is a show where we go see a movie, we go home, we talk about that movie, and then we put it up later. I am your MC for the hour, Johnson Tyler McCrone. I'm joined by three fabulous guests. Introduce yourselves from left to right.
Whose left is this? This is Logan Anstead. This is funny.
Brandon Diaz.
This is Billy Gillane.
So boys, we just saw a film called Blade Runner 2049. We're going to do a quick little 5-minute non-spoiler review. Then we're gonna get into those spoilers. So let's talk about it. We did a little mic bit before to test audio levels, but let's redo it now. 1-word review of Blade Runner 2049 from left going right.
Let's bump that up to 3 words.
3 words,
just so we can give people
3
a
or
little
less.
more leniency.
3 or less. Logan, go.
The F word, holy, and then the S word.
Okay, Brandon, go.
That's 1 word. Is 1 word?
No, it's.
Ah, jeez.
Oh man.
Jeez, Billy, go.
Yeah, that's it. There we go.
A very fitting sequel. There you go.
All right,
I feel like that was a good one.
That's professional.
That was
Take the A out.
The 3-word
Yeah.
expansion was a very, very smart idea.
Well, yeah. I love that expansion pack. My favorite.
That
bit
was,
of content.
Much better than mine. Geez.
Geez, it's a. But no. For real though, it was quite a film. I do have to say. I haven't been engrossed.
And mine 3 are artistic and cinematographic.
So, wow.
I just wanted to say artistic.
What are words?
I just
Who
wanted-
knows?
I just
Oh my
wanted to say
God.
artistic, but then there was 3, so I just say 3.
No, I haven't been that engrossed in a film since probably Dunkirk, and then before that, anything Christopher Nolan put out. Because
Such hot
He's
classics
good,
as
but-
Dunkirk.
no, but like I couldn't
Filmed in
believe
1943.
the only time I was ever taken out of like the immersion was when somebody's phone went off, and
Right near the end.
Brandon and I looked at each other because there was like this cinematic shot.
You started
we
kissing?
we were the faded. They had this one part in the movie where like there were all these lights, and it faded and it dissolved into the side of a building, and I lost my ever living mind. It was crazy.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever focused so much on a movie before, like, because I just want to take everything in as much as possible. Like, you guys saw, like, I was sitting up in my seat, and I was just, like, getting into
You
it.
were quite an excited little boy. I had the pleasure of sitting next to you. Quite excited.
Oh, my God,
The
man.
pleasure of sitting next to an excited little boy.
I
John
love
McCrone.
seeing
There you go,
I
man.
love seeing the brevity of youth. Billy?
Like I really like this movie. The only real issue I had with it was that it started a little slow for me. But once it kind of got 30, 45 minutes in, that thing really picked up, and I was hooked. The rest
Now
of
that
the
we're
way.
talking about issues, I can go.
Oh god.
So
Let's hear the complaint master go.
as I said, I thought it was a very artistic movie. My real only issues with it aren't necessarily issues with the movie specifically, but
There
more
are issues with you.
modern sci-fi movies in general. Like Ghost in the Shell, and it's not really sci-fi.
Okay, Ghost in the Shell is a really weird comparison.
I'm just saying,
I'm
like
just
Ghost in
saying.
the Shell, and it's not sci-fi, but I consider in this same kind of vein, The Revenant. The main thing is like they have a lot of shots that are very long and drawn out that are like they're really good computer wallpapers, but they add a lot of like time to the movie. That was like, okay, we can move on to the shot. We don't need like 30 in succession. These like great, very cinematic shots.
The man with getting a production degree is upset about establishing shots in a film.
There was just there were a lot of them, and I don't know. I just felt kind of weirded out by
I mean,
it.
that's honestly one of the better criticisms you've ever given, though, because
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, when John walks out of a movie, he's just like,
I don't
"I don't
like
like that love was the solution to
I don't
everything."
like the one.
That
I
was
don't
a
like the
very-
cut of his jib.
It was a very constructive criticism, and I can understand where you're coming from,
It's
because a
just
lot of the
something-
times I'm just
yeah.
like, I get it.
It's a part, and the reason I mentioned The Revenant because I consider that a very artistic movie. But The Revenant was really bad. Where you're like you have 30 seconds of like a snow-capped mountain. You're like, okay, where's the story? And you know the problem with that movie was not much of a story.
Okay, so
But-
there's the comparison to The Revenant, because that was not a sci-fi movie. You made
was-
that jump.
no,
and I was
no,
just
no,
like,
I was about to say, sci-fi movies, The Revenant, guys.
Yeah. No, but
I have another complaint. Before we talk
please
about
Go for it.
spread it out.
And this one is a little bit, once again, non specifically movie, but
You're
more
putting
Sony
cream
specific.
cheese on a jelly donut. Let's go.
No, so
Oh, there we go. That's that solid critique.
so we saw the Emoji Movie come out.
Oh my god.
And we thought that was just a flash in the pan. We thought it was going to go away. We thought the war was over. But
The war?
Sony, little CEO of Sony, rose from the ashes and says, I know how we can win. We get companies to sponsor movies again.
Yeah.
And we just plaster their advertisements all over our movies shamelessly because who cares? It drew me out a lot.
Here's where I'm gonna hit you with that. The original movie literally had that as part of the aesthetic. that it was a hyper advertised world. When he went into his apartment for the first time, there was two advertisements reflecting on the side of the building, like where the windows are. I think it was supposed to show that like in poor neighborhoods in
Are
this
you talking this one or original?
in 2049.
Okay, I'm just making sure.
For this one, it's showing poor neighborhoods.
Right.
They have the advertising. It's the same thing. Like people say it all the time, and you see it on commercials. Like tobacco companies will advertise more in poor neighborhoods because it's an easier demographic to hit. And I think this movie was showing how like that advertising mentality of like getting the people who are most susceptible to buying their products.
It is supposed to be a dystopian society.
I can see that. I think my mic. Go ahead, Bill.
I think going off that kind of, the thing is with when you're in a city, it's a populated city.
Right.
It's a very immersive world. I feel like the advertisements help with that immersive. It didn't take me out of it whatsoever.
Right.
Yeah.
My only problem with it, and this is just something that I kind of felt in my own, is that in the original Blade Runner, and a lot of movies of that era, the city and the setting are characters in the film.
Yeah.
This didn't feel like that to me, especially some of the more blatant ones, like Atari was there and Pan Am.
That was a throwback. No, but that was a throwback.
That was a throwback. It was just it felt really out of place.
In 82 when the movie was out, those were two of the biggest sponsors for the film.
Yeah. I don't know. It kind of took it out of me because it was so.
I mean, Pan Am doesn't exist anymore.
Right. The only thing with me is like they didn't keep up with that aesthetic. It was just kind of there as like a fan servicey type of thing.
I don't know.
I mean,
what advertisements were there besides that in the film? Like, after the Pan Am.
So you had Coca-Cola, you had Sony, you had Atari.
Right.
Oh my god, I'm gonna name so many of them. Joy, which was like their version of like weird electronic.
But that's not real.
Sex robot thing. No, that's not real.
Oh no. But I think we misunderstood. I'm not saying advertisements in general. I'm saying specific of real brands.
Oh, like brand.
Well, real brands.
Coca-Cola, Atari. Sony was not in the original one, but Coca-Cola and Atari were big parts of the original one. You saw that on the side of buildings and everything like that because it was that Asian woman, like the stereotypically like Japanese woman on the side of the Los Angeles buildings doing that. And then you had this that was kind of like the redux, like they purposely put in the future, like the future of this movie's universe.
Just for me, it was a little, it just drew me out of it a little bit. Also, Brad, did Billy want to say something?
I think going off that, the thing is with Atari and all that is this is a different world than the world we're in. Like the last one was set in 2019, and that was all prevalent stuff.
And it's 2 years from now in our world, like the actual reality.
And so obviously in our world, Atari's not a thing anymore.
Well, they have that Kickstarter, you know. If we run a video game show, this is too specific.
Fair enough. I don't have an issue with that because it's something that was established in the last world.
Yeah,
as something that worked in the future.
And that's why I think. For me, it added it added to the ambiance for me, honestly, of having like this hyper advertised world where like you go down and everything is just in your face. I mean, you had people walking by the holograms of people advertising for different things, like the girls, like the holographic girls that were just like in scantily clad,
like the go-go dancers.
Yeah. I'm kind of tired of that like trope of we're in a Neo city, so we'll have a giant hologram doing something weird like ballet dancing or sipping tea.
I felt like it stuck to the original aesthetic of the first movie.
It totally does. Like, it seems like a weird thing that people thought would happen in the future. Like they'll just have billboards of people doing ballet and smoking tea in the middle of the street.
All right,
I don't have an issue with that in this film because that's something that they're taking directly from the first film.
It definitely. I understand what you're saying though when you said like in the first film the city has a character in and of itself. I definitely felt like they had a lot to cover in this film.
Right.
So the city got less of a spotlight. Like you knew it was there and it was like living, breathing with or without them, but it didn't really have like a personality of its own.
Right. Before we get too deep into the city personalities and all that stuff, let's just get a quick out of 5 sales review from each of us.
Sales? Oh.
We work at the Spinnaker.
I thought you meant like ticket box office sales.
No. it's gonna do well. I can tell you
SAIL.
That I can tell you.
It's
gonna do great. It's gonna be huge.
And for the future, I promise, those were really the only issues I had. So when we get to character construction, I'm gonna be talking a lot
We're so
about
excited.
good stuff.
All right, John, out of 5.
I'll give it a 3.5.
Brandon?
Ooh, I'd probably give it a 5, honestly.
Billy?
I'll say 4.5.
I'm going to give it a very rare for me 5 out of 5.
Ooh, I thought you were about to say 6.
Oh, no. I'm not. 13 out of 5 sales. Definitely what we wanted. But yeah, so those are our quick reviews. Let's get into why that is the way it is.
Spoiler warning.
Oh, yeah.
Spoiler
Here it's
warning
coming.
ahead.
This is your spoiler warning. Please turn off now if you haven't viewed the
spoiler
film.
warning coming in on the East North Ender.
Yeah. All right. So let's get into it.
So in case you missed it, and for some reason you're still watching this and don't know what's going on, pay attention. 1, 2, it's the spoiler section.
Hey kids, pay attention.
Let's get into it. I want to talk I'm gonna let you guys talk because I think you want to talk about the city and stuff like that. Because I want to get into some deep character.
Oh no, we can move on from the city. There, I mean, you already said it. There wasn't too much to the city.
Right.
Like it was gorgeous, and I like the aesthetic that they kept with Los Angeles. But I mean, aside from like Vegas,
I just think that like like when you're talking about Los Angeles, the first movie, I take this as kind of like a trilogy. Like I see where this is going. Like, or not. It might be even more, but I know we talked about Christopher Nolan earlier, but Batman Begins, like the way they established how grimy Gotham was and stuff like that.
Right.
That was the first film. I see the original Blade Runner, even though it was 35 years ago, as the establishing thing for LA.
Yeah, 100%.
But the thing with that though is that was only intended to be one movie when it was made. It wasn't intended to be a trilogy with Batman Begins. That was obviously intended to be multiple movies.
But I think it's kind of like when you play video game sequels a lot of the time, where like you don't necessarily need to see the first one, but everything from the first one kind of adds to it. Because me having rewatched Blade Runner earlier this week changed everything. Like me just remembering the words that were said, the script, like okay. What I mean is like
that was just funny.
like Rachel's lines, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't have remembered that if I hadn't watched it again earlier this week. When she said everything and they played the voice, when they played the voice recordings, like that hit me harder than I think if I had not watched.
I think it hit Deckard a lot harder than it hit you.
Oh,
as I was trying to
deep
say,
cut, Brandon.
I hadn't watched the movie in a long time. I meant to. I couldn't find the time, and I remembered those like that character.
Boy couldn't find 2 hours.
But I couldn't remember like the specific line. So but that was actually still really impressive how they kind of tied the two worlds together and everything like that.
I think seeing the first movie definitely makes this one loads better.
Oh yeah.
I watched it yesterday.
Ooh, that fresh
recent.
Exactly. So it was pretty awesome. But that enhanced the movie for me so much. Yeah.
So looking at characters now, which is one of my favorite things to do in any movie is to break down the characters.
Pulls up that IMDb
so I know what the characters' names are.
We had Kay.
I'm not really going to talk about Kay or Decker a lot because I think, especially Kay, was more of he seemed like a side character in his own story. He was just kind of a billboard that everyone else.
He was just kind of there to push the story along.
Exactly, which is still. I mean, Ryan Gosling played him fantastic.
Yeah, I think he was a perfect cast.
I think that was the character. The character was more of a billboard in life who eventually, kind of cheered up and stuff like that and became more active.
Billy, did you want to?
Oh no, I was just gonna say Ryan Gosling is fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, superb.
Yeah.
But what I want to talk about, my favorite character from the film is played by Sylvia Hoeks. I have no idea how to pronounce her last name.
Oh my goodness.
Who played the weird assistant to what was his name? The
Jared Leto's character.
Neander Wallace.
Yeah,
nickname
Wallace.
Love. I thought was a fantastically complex and flawed character. Who, at least from what I got, was trying the whole movie, like supremely aware that she was a replicant and was like probably the esteem build of his new replicant series, but still throughout the film kept trying so hard to become human and feel human emotions,
but also hold that back in front of Wallace.
hold them back, right?
So
that just that non-shown and not dealt with, and I'm really glad it wasn't explicitly presented to us, but that internal struggle that she was having for the entire film, I thought was one of the best. It was one of the best pieces of writing I've seen.
I mean, the first thing you saw was like when he was like, when Kay was like, "Oh, he gave you a name,"
right?
Like you could see just I don't know how she got this out, but like the emotion of reserved anger, but just like still having that like creepy kind of smile to it,
and especially just seeing that character, like in character, just break when she becomes those more human moments.
Yeah.
And she clearly tries to restrain them because of, I would assume, what Wallace has done to her in the past.
And
which is amazingly well acted.
Quick jump to the end while we're talking about her.
I'm the best one.
Yeah, when she thinks she finishes off Kay.
I'm the best one.
Yeah, she's like cocky. She's like, I did it. I'm the best one. And then she goes to swim, and then clearly she isn't the best one.
Right.
But when Wallace cut open like the new replicant or whatever,
the new lady,
the early Rachel that they didn't get right.
Yeah, the one tear that was just
the
there.
right either.
Her eyes were green.
You guys suck at this.
Her eyes were green.
Her eyes were green.
It's not Batman.
I'm Batman. Her eyes were green.
Anyway.
Swear to me. But yeah, no, it's just like she was a very complex character.
Right.
I want to highlight Kay's kind of digital.
I absolutely loved. Oh, Digital Lady. I absolutely loved her. I thought she was a fantastic
Joy,
actress.
right?
Joy, yes. Ana de Armas.
First off, the scene,
Armas.
I have never been so, and it's not because it was a sex scene. Like, let's get that joke out of the way. But like,
excuse me,
because they didn't even show anything. But like the scene where she like hired,
Oh my gosh,
sex
that was
worker,
yeah.
and like the sinking or whatever. Like,
that was incredible.
It was like one I saw it. Sorry, John, I just hit your mic. One I see it as like the future of the current VR situation that we're in right now, where you have a bunch of Japanese men being like, "Oh yeah, let me marry my anime wife."
But that was incredible.
Yeah.
Though.
Yeah.
Like the
No.
sinking.
The idea behind it, like that just threw me. That was the thing that kind of like encapsulated me in the
Right.
world at that point in the film the most, because I was just like, this is a world where this is a regular thing. Like that.
Right.
That's,
And-
one, sex working is, nobody cares anymore in this universe. But like two, that's a totally acceptable thing. This syncing of this animatronic.
I
AI.
think that's not true. It wasn't. That's not acceptable. People were making fun of him just for having that robot. He was still a weeb, quote unquote, in
Yeah.
the future.
No,
He was
but,
still being mocked.
but like the sex worker was just like, yeah, there's a thing that's happening.
Well, I think what it is, it's a thing with replicants
Yeah.
because they can't get, real people.
Well, yeah.
I think it's, and the way like at least the way I picked it up, the way that the ads of that program Joy was specifically talking to Kay,
Yeah.
it made me feel like it was catered specifically to replicants to kind of like give them that real.
The
life
point of that
feel.
AI, and you see it in the advertisements, is you hear what you want, you see what
Right.
you want.
Exactly.
It does what you desire, and I think it's an AI that like senses that, and it just reminded
Right.
me. I played a game called Tacoma earlier this
Oh
year.
boy.
I'm sorry, I'm going into it. It's a game by Fulbright. It's a good indie company. Whatever.
Talked about a movie that didn't have anything.
Yeah,
to do
no,
with the movie.
I'm sorry, but the point of that game. Spoilers for Tacoma, by the way.
Spoiler the
There's one of the big things in that game is about the rights of artificial AI. And so
Wait a second.
that when that stuff came up with her and like her wanting to be away from the home console or whatever, that's all I could think about. And I was just
Right.
like, this is a game, or not a game, jeez. This movie, Blade Runner 2049, is a movie that has something for everybody. If you just want to watch a movie at the surface level, it was a great like action / sci-fi film. If you want to dig deep into this stuff and have some
Like,
relating to video
thoughtful,
games
deep
again,
conversation.
Bioshock Infinite, like craziness, like where you're sitting down and decompressing for 2 hours, this is a movie that you go see.
So
Absolutely.
I just wanted to bring
yeah,
up two
go ahead.
things about Joy. One, you said artificial intelligence. And two, the way they did her transparency to show
AI.
that she was that she was like a hologram
Yeah.
was incredible. Like you could see the her background like coming through her, which I thought
I was
was
endlessly
awesome.
captivated by
Yeah.
that scene.
And the-
it was
Right.
incredible.
Her hologram recognized that she was in the rain and started placing rain on her. I
Yeah.
thought it was incredible. I love
Yeah,
it.
I think Joy and Kay, their relationship was, for me at least, the best relationship between any two characters in that movie.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Especially since Kay couldn't really was like very emotionless. He still showed emotion.
Exactly.
when
It felt like
talking
she
to
was the
her.
only person he could really talk to. But kind of going off that, this is the spoiler cast, so
Here we go.
when I guess she quote unquote dies, for me that was the hardest hitting scene in the movie.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, because I feel like that was kind of like the shattering of, no, you're not human. You don't get to be human.
Yeah,
That's explicitly what I saw it as. What I saw Joy as, and this was kind of my problem
Here we go,
with
deep
slight
dive by
problem
John.
with Joy, is
I
that
thought you didn't have any more complaints about the movie.
I lied.
I thought you loved all the characters.
So I do. This is why I'm
Yo,
conflicted
shout out to
about Joy.
Robin Wright, yo.
This is why I'm conflicted about Joy, because I absolutely adored the scenes that she was in, but they felt very drawn out, and to me at least, they didn't really serve a final purpose, because when she does get destroyed in the end, what I saw on Kay's face wasn't, oh, my wife got destroyed. It was like, oh no, I lost kind of like my barrier between me being a replicant and me being human.
He was also dying.
He was also dying, yes.
Yeah.
But I feel
I
like
mean,
It's like
I
that-
think
that's not-
Ryan Gosling played the character like he was supposed to. Like he doesn't really show emotion. Like
oh, that's what
he's
I'm
a very
saying.
emotional.
He
That's
played
what I'm
a
saying.
he played a replicant
Yeah.
that thought for a moment that he was human.
I don't know if Kay actually was in love with Joy. I felt like it was more of a relationship where he kind of needed her to like basically not blow his brains out. Like
Yeah,
he needed her to
exactly.
feel human. And once he lost that, he like lost himself almost.
No, yeah, when she dies, I get you when you look at Ryan Gosling's face, you get the idea that it broke him.
Right.
It broke Kay.
Right.
And
Not necessarily in like a romantic way, but more of like, for me at least, like a mental.
Well, in
For me, it was just it
way.
broke his will to live.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for kind of
Trying to get
him
more comfortable.
going to save
Deckard.
Yeah, Deckard. I don't think.
Get off my plane.
Yeah, I don't think I wouldn't be surprised at all if he ended up just killing himself.
I mean, in a
Right.
single moment, he lost the one thing that encouraged him to keep going.
Right.
He lost his chance at finding out the truth. He thought until
Right.
he got rescued. But at that moment in time, Deckard is gone.
Right.
Joy is gone. His ability to do anything is gone because he's
Well, I
at his
think.
weakest point.
And you can see it when he's
I was gonna
talking to the
mention
big
that.
hologram.
I was gonna mention that.
After he gets saved by the other replicants,
Right.
and they say the one thing that makes us more human is dying for something
Right.
that you
That's the thing
believe
that will
in.
make us most human is dying in a cause you believe in.
Yeah, and when he's talking to that hologram, you can tell he's thinking about it. He's just like, I can finally feel
Right.
human again
He's
by
making
doing
a
something that
choice
matters.
between do I want to stay in the facade of being human or do I want to
Actually
Detroit
be
become human?
Which
deep crap, man.
that I guess kind of leads.
I
into,
love character analysis. What can I say?
To my biggest question with the ending is he supposed to be when he's on the steps at the end? Is he supposed to be dead or is
Yes.
he just?
I
I think he
I
dies.
took it
Yeah,
as dead.
I believe
Like,
100%.
Because I felt like they kind of left it ambiguous, and I feel like this movie is significantly better if he ends up dying.
It's
I
Inception
thought he
with
was
the
gonna
spinning
die
top.
in the water
Right.
when he was
Exactly,
after he
that's-
saved
yeah.
Deckard.
That's what I thought he should have.
I thought he wasn't gonna be able to get up, but I think
Yeah.
it's kind of symbolic that he died on the steps. Like the first time that he thought he was human was after he stepped outside, found out that memory was from a real thing that he thought was his, but it actually ended up being Deckard's daughter. He thought was his, so he felt snow for the first time. He looked at his hand and he turned around, and so that was the first time he felt human. And I think after learning that he's not human, I think he felt human again, quote unquote, when he was dying because he looked at the snow again and
Right.
he felt the snow on his
I
hand.
also thought it was really good. Sorry to interject, but I thought it was really good symbolism because you have the ultimate like battle between Love and Kay, being these two different characters, where one is trying so hard to both express and suppress her emotions, and one's just trying to find his past
to find out if he is a human.
Find out he is a human. And for Love, that ended culminates in her just dying in chaotic events because she can't control her own self. But
Because
for Kay,
yeah,
he finds out that the trick to becoming human isn't being emotional, isn't necessarily like having these memories, but acting in a way that you think is right.
See, the thing I took away from the last scene is he at the end of it he still sees Deckard as his father,
Right.
and I think that's what makes him feel human again at the end of that.
Right.
He's the
at the end
father of
that
the
movie.
cause he's dying
Exactly.
for.
Right.
and while we're on it, were they trying to imply that Kay was the like replicated boy from
here's what I picked up on
his
that.
daughter?
So the memory lady who did they ever say her name? Nillian? I think Dr. Nillian was or something like that.
Yeah,
Which, by
Lab
the way,
lady.
one of I think maybe my favorite scene in the entire movie is when Kay first goes to her.
yeah, and she
And their
cried.
interaction, I absolutely loved it. I thought it was fantastic.
I thought it was incredible,
But
and we can talk about it later.
Right,
but
right.
I know.
But I believe what that final confrontation implied was that Nillian was the girl who was actually born.
Yeah.
And I saw Kay that was designed to be her protector.
like
That's who he was.
like the decoy.
That's why he had her memories. That's why he had this weird connection to her because he was her protector.
Yeah.
And what happened is, I guess, in the past some time,
The
he got
blackout.
her to that point, and then he wiped him, or somebody wiped him.
and the blackout
It
happened.
was so good.
It was very good.
It's
Yeah.
very good.
And we can talk
can't-
about the
yeah.
doc later because I think she was an incredible part of the
She
movie.
was such a short part of the movie, but such a fantastic part of the movie.
Let's shift gears a bit to somebody who I guess wasn't such an inspirational character, Wallace.
Wallace.
I loved
thought he
him
was
at-
played
No, I love
fantastically.
played fine. I'm just talking about like
Jared
my-
Leto acted him.
I have
yes.
Absolutely.
so much hate for that concept of a
I didn't.
person.
of a
God.
god complex man who is literally playing God and creating.
So
evil.
my problem with that kind of character is that they never.
Here's a
I thought you had no more
I
problems.
lied again. My problem with that kind of character is they never really add much. They kind of, especially a Jared Leto-esque character, they kind of show up. And I said this to Brandon when he first murders the fake Rachel. He'll say like 10 minutes of weird, like pseudo literature, pseudo like religious, pseudo like psychoanalyzing
Oh
stuff,
God.
and then he'll say, find the baby. It's like, you could have just said that, and the scene could have been over.
I think at least villains in general in today, a lot of today's blockbusters aren't nearly as well done as they used to be. I think you can look at a majority of the Marvel movies, for example, and say most of those villains aren't all that great. And I think this is another example where they're very two-dimensional characters.
Right.
And I feel that Jared Leto is another example of that.
And the thing is, they didn't really dive too like they left you assuming what his motives are for being the way. Like, you could say corporate greed, but like he is obviously like the Wallace Corporation. Like, they show the old Tyrell Corporation, and the Wallace Corporation literally, like, the building behind it like quadrupled its size.
Yeah, they massacred them, basically.
So I don't think he's after like the capitalistic prophecy of getting as
you
much
either
money
have a war or a
as
slaughter.
Yeah.
Movie quotes.
So it's just like I don't know, like he played the character very well, I think. I recognize your criticism of like, you know, him just having this god complex and getting short to the point.
I want to talk about another problem I had. I lied a lot because I forgot about stuff that I remembered them.
Oh, Papa.
I thought them throwing in the Wallace, I want to take over the universe trope.
I don't know if it was more take over the universe.
We should own the stars.
I don't know if there's like a universe to take over, because what they're implying is that like we need to expand more because look at the dystopia, and
but
we need to be more places.
But like looking at that, like his taking over something, because he already took over the world, I guess, over other worlds, whatever, our solar system maybe. I really don't know. But then throwing in like the resistance movement for like 3 minutes, and saying we're here for the sequel.
Yeah, that's probably my biggest issue actually. Now thinking about it with the movie is like there's this huge replicant resistance that's there for like one scene, and that's all you see them for.
The sequel.
The thing is,
the
for
secret
me,
is they're there the whole time.
I didn't have a problem with it because I don't think that was the focus of this movie. I think like we talked about trying to sum up like our review or like how we felt about the movie in one word. I don't think this is a film that can be summed up in one sentence because there were so many just different. I'm not gonna try it. It's just, I can sum it up in one sentence. It can't be summed up in one sentence. That's the sentence. Like, there are so many different narratives and motives that are working here. And I don't think the resistance was ever going to be the central focal point of this.
Well, no, my thing is just like, because that decision, we're seeing it more and more. The more movies get bigger budget and stuff like that, where you can sort of see where the executives come in. And I think it's clear that at least this is all
I saw no executive input.
This is all me assumption, but I think he said that I want to make a couple of these movies, and some executives said, "Well, we gotta set the second one. People won't know there'll be a second one."
Well, yeah.
Put a scene in there where there's a resistance.
Yeah, that's my thing. Is I didn't go into this movie expecting there to be another movie after it. So seeing that resistance there kind of is like
that's true.
But my thing is like you don't need that.
But
people don't need that connection between the movies.
But otherwise, what after Kay found out that he wasn't the child, what other motivation would he have had besides there's other people with you who shared the same experience and did all this other stuff?
And they literally gave him the motivation to keep living.
Right. Well, my thing is like they could have easily it could have just been her, and they could have said like in broad terms, "Oh, you were her protector. Go get her."
But even
or go save the dad so he can save her.
But even then, they say that he should kill Decker. They don't say he should save him.
Right. They say go kill Decker.
Yeah. They don't even kind of give him that kind of
get off my plane.
Yeah.
I feel like this was more of like the original Alien movie, right? Was like a horror film.
Okay.
I'm gonna look. It's gonna make sense in a second. I promise. The original Alien movie was a horror film, right? You look at Aliens. And the future movies after that, some of them were like dedicated action films. Yeah. There was no horror trope element of it anymore.
Terrible.
Some would say they were bad, but they were a different type of movie. I think the original Blade Runner was a certain type of movie. Blade Runner 2049 was a variation on that without stemming too much for it. I feel like this sequel they've set up, whether we want it or not, is going to be completely different from the first two.
Right.
Keep the same world and aesthetic, but it's going to be a war film. I feel like that's where we're headed.
I mean, that's probably one of the things I like the best about this film is it felt like a Blade Runner sequel.
Yes.
So if a third movie kind of deviates from that, I don't know how I'd feel about that.
I definitely won't like it.
Yeah.
I'll be very upset.
That's very far in the future. So
it's like adding a giant alien ship at the end of 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Exactly. But I don't think a sequel setup really ruined anything for me.
I think it added to the film, but I don't know if it was necessary.
It's one of those things where like I kind of saw like the words between the lines. I was just like, oh, they're just blatantly setting up for a sequel, and oh god, this was gonna be a war movie. It's gonna be corporations versus peaceful slave robots. I robot.
All right, John's getting into some deep political terror. Let's any other characters that we want to highlight real quick.
Oh, the lieutenant. What was it? Was that a lieutenant?
Robin Wright. Yes.
Okay,
yeah,
Robin
I
Wright
thought she
plays
was-
every character famously.
Kind of the
Great
same character in
time.
every single thing.
Yes.
The one who's like the female authority figure who dies pretty quickly.
Also, rest in peace, Coco.
Rest in peace, Coco.
Oh no.
He got deaded real quick.
Oh,
That
these
was-
are Doctor whatever.
Oh my god. But all right, so
For those of you who haven't seen the film yet, I think she punched out his jaw from the back of his
if you
neck.
haven't seen the film, why the hell are you watching?
Also,
Well,
his face collapsed into his
I'm not
chest.
sure what she did, but it was pretty metal.
Also, the dude
messed
who
him up
plays
real
Coco literally plays the same character in every movie. Like, wasn't he one of the crazy dudes in the Dark
he was the
Knight?
Joker's
right?
accomplice.
The only thing I remember him from is the Dark Knight, where he plays the crazy dude.
That's pretty much the only thing he's been
He's just laughing and then he
Also,
freaks out when the
I don't know if you
ambulance gets
saw
shut.
this. Mr. I Am the Captain now made an appearance.
Yes.
I'm your black market dealer now.
I am the woodman now.
I thought that
Apparently,
was also
Brandon,
a really cool character.
you leaned over and talked to Brandon and made that joke, and immediately after, I tapped him on the shoulder and I made this almost the exact same joke, so that was tragic. But so I know we've highlighted characters. I'd like to move on to highlighting another character in the film, which is Vegas.
We just talked about how the setting wasn't a character this time around.
I'm
We
gonna
talked
say.
about, I guess, LA
I'm gonna say.
Oh,
I just want to
got me,
highlight
Billy.
how different.
Spoilers: Vegas also wasn't a
Yeah.
character.
So Vegas and the
Get off my orange.
Vegas and San Diego. Oh god, Vegas and San Diego were such. I guess
Was that a
breath-
dig towards
breath
San
of-
Diego?
No.
It's our
Vegas-
garbage
They
pile.
deserve to be.
Boy, if you don't let me get this point out before.
Sorry, go.
Vegas and San Diego were such breaths of fresh air in this film that it was just kind of incredible. Wow, that's some peaking.
That's why I laughed at you.
Oh god. But so like you had the stuff with the slave kids in San Diego, which was like just a nice reprieve from what we had seen in Los Angeles.
Slave kids are a nice reprieve from dystopian society.
And also San Diego, which was in this film portrayed as a giant trash heap.
For
Pretty much
Los
the same thing that
Angeles.
San
Such a
Diego
breath
is
of
right
fresh
now.
air.
Where should LA put all of his trash? Let's just throw it in San Diego.
No one goes there anyway.
San Diego, what a trash city. God, I hope nobody's watching from there. Anyway,
It's full of whales.
we go to Las Vegas, and I remember reading earlier this week, and I really shouldn't have because I didn't want to spoil it for myself. But the orange, I guess, aesthetic, the setting for that city was
So-
based on the 2009 Australian dust storm.
Well, here's what I want to know. In the context of the film, who nukes Las Vegas?
Have you not
It's the
played
same
Fallout?
people- Yeah.
It's,
But why would you nuke
It's
Las
the
Vegas?
Chinese.
Why would you
The
nuke Las
Chinese.
Vegas?
Because it's full of sin, John.
Yeah, I feel like if we're gonna nuke a city on the West Coast, it'd be
Yeah,
Los
exactly.
Angeles. Not
Las
Las
Vegas is
They
full of
missed Los
sin.
Angeles and hit the other
They
Los.
couldn't get that far.
Yeah. But
It was
besides
probably
that-
Kentucky. They were like, you know what? Screw California.
Yeah.
And
Screw
they
the,
only hit Las
screw the
Vegas.
Actually-
statesman.
It seemed like it was more of like maybe a contamination leak thing because buildings like weren't destroyed. But that was just a weird thing. I was like, why would you just nuke?
It still
Las
looked cool,
Vegas?
though.
I bet
It looked really cool.
I like those bees.
I just
Yeah.
the
Oh, I hate
scenes
this.
that were in that were just such a nice break from the rest of the film.
Trash heaps.
Like that's what Los Angeles was
Nice
like.
break from San Diego.
Los Angeles and San Diego and
Were gross.
Las Vegas all had different life to them for me.
I
And
see, like they had very different aesthetics. They
Yeah.
did
I
very
saw the
different flavors.
dichotomy
But
and it was
even-
fantastic.
Right.
But even the way scenes played out changed. Like Vegas went into a traditional movie thing for me. Like when
Right.
you got, and I guess that's kind of Harrison Ford's stick. Like you think of Harrison Ford, you're like, oh, this is old Hollywood, right? Like this is
Yeah.
our version of old Hollywood, and that's what a lot of the Vegas scenes were. It's like, you want some whiskey? I got 1,000,000 bottles of whiskey, and
There's
they just
Elvis
sat down
here.
at the counter and they had simplistic shots, and there was none of this like gigantic 30-minute establishing shots. Like
You heard of
mentioned
Tupac
earlier.
as a hologram?
And then
we got Frank Sinatra as a hologram.
San Diego was the same way. Like you were flying through a city and it looked like a disaster zone, and it was different. You go back to LA and everything is just in your face, hugely immersive stuff. All these ads, everything's a bright neon dystopia, and it was just a nice break. And I appreciated the way they handled exactly the timing of when they had the Vegas scenes come in.
Right.
It felt like a nice like transition from dark, dank LA
Dank.
and to like bright, like dusty Las Vegas. And I love the aesthetic of the orange
Right.
and just the orange dust cloud, like you said, Australian dust storm. And I felt like
Like it just hung over every scene. Like
I-
it changed
I
everything.
think it does a great job. The orange overcast kind of does a great job in contrasting Los Angeles with Las Vegas.
Right.
You know, Los Angeles is very dark, like almost all the time. I think pretty much in this film.
And
in
that
the first
point
one
in the
for that
film
matter.
for Kay,
Constantly.
too.
Yeah.
aside from the snow,
I don't think that was in it. I think that was
That might have
somewhere
been-
No,
know where that
snow.
was.
No,
Yeah.
the snow.
I'm not-
If it's symbolic of anything, as a writer, we were taught this. Snow means
Purity.
death.
purity.
No, every time in writing that you see snow, it's
It means
death
purity.
or like, it's like some kind of finality to it.
The
right?
end.
That's a lot to
And
jumper
so-
for me.
Las Vegas was the point, like the way that it changed the aesthetic of the. God, I hate this. The way it changed the aesthetic. You've been watching nothing. God. All right. Well, what I was gonna say is the way that it changed the mindset of Kay. I can't, Brandon.
Yeah,
I
the
can't.
way they
The way it
changed
changed
the
the
mindset of
mindset of Kay from LA
about
to
that.
Las Vegas, I think it was symbolic in the colors.
Right.
You know?
My favorite aesthetic.
Y'all killing me.
Honestly, my favorite aesthetic of the entire movie was the Dave Bautista set, wherever the hell that was. I loved it.
Anything with Dave Bautista is fantastic.
Exactly.
The
But, like,
farm.
the framing of every single farm scene, I loved. I was in love with. I loved the aesthetic and all that.
That was my cheek.
So that was my favorite aesthetic from the movie.
Let's talk about sound real quick.
I
Because
Hans
love
Zimmer
synth
zimmered
music.
his heart out.
was it Hans Zimmer in
Yeah.
this? Oh
Yeah.
god.
Oh my god.
Was it
The
really?
Yeah,
synth.
that was Hans Zimmer. And,
Oh.
and who was the other one? I forget the other one. But it was Hans
Now
Zimmer.
we
So-
watched
have-
it.
I-
We watched it in the
Shut up.
XD film at Tinseltown, which is like kind of their version of. It's not IMAX, but like there is.
It's like IMAX
improved-
without being IMAX.
Yeah, the
Pretty
screen's slightly bigger, and like the sound just comes at you in a way that it does not in a normal theater. But from the very beginning, where the entire theater is shaking because a car is passing, or Kay's vehicle is passing by, and you feel like the power of the lights, to
Stop hitting my mic.
to every transition between cities, scenes,
Hans
apartments,
Zimmer?
on the street, everything was so not in your face, but just encompassing of everything that was going on. Every single note and every single wah came at just the right time.
The
Absolutely.
synthiness. Let me say, I've been really getting into synth music since Prey came out with Mick Gordon doing the soundtrack for that. Let me tell you, the synth music was so on point from the first movie to this movie. Like, I'm about to download the soundtrack.
You
real
take
quick.
2009 Owl City and you have him kill himself and then resurrect himself and then put him in Neo Tokyo.
Music
the
by
music.
Hans Zimmer and Benjamin Wallfish, who most recently did the film It.
Don't know what that is.
It 2017.
Don't know
Oh,
You
It. I
know
thought you
what
said
the It
hit.
movie is?
I thought he said hit.
I messed up a little bit.
Can
on
I
my
hit you for that?
It. Yeah, it was It. So yeah, I thought the music was fantastic. Once again, I'm kind of tired of just like the standard.
But
Every
the
30
synth
seconds.
music. But
The synth music was really good.
really like
The stuff that wasn't just pure was
Yeah.
really enjoyable. And the little chime that played every time Joy came out, I thought was cute.
Yeah, you complained in the middle of the movie and you're like, why is it the only ringtone he has?
Because that's when they didn't really establish it as like. Because that was before they established it, at least in my mind, that it was just a thing for replicants. And then once they kind of established, like, oh, okay, so that makes sense why they would.
And
be
it was
known
by
as that.
Wallace Corp as well, so
Exactly.
it's like their thing.
It would make sense why that would be known as the replicant thing, because none of them would bother changing it, because it's just a thing for replicants, so they would only have one. Because who
Right.
cares?
So, are we good to move on to one of John's favorite topics, cinematography?
I hate cinematography.
Oh my god. Being a production major here at the University of North Florida, John hates cinematography.
Here's a 30-second shot of a waterfall.
But no, the things that they set up, just like that one shot, though, I do have to talk about is that. What did you just do?
I hit the mix board.
No, keep talking.
That's
Hit the
not
mix
good.
board.
The shot where they had like the ocean overflowing and stuff, like not to make it in relation to like modern day and stuff,
Oh,
but like
boy.
we just had like the hurricanes or whatever hit
Here we
here,
go.
and it was just I don't know. It just
Talk
it's
in the front, buddy.
okay.
You're
well,
making connections
I'm
that
sorry.
don't exist.
I'm okay. I'm not. We're
We
going
have so
to
many male HDMI cords. Let's
Just
connect
push
them
through it. Just
together.
push through it. Just push through
the
it.
the ocean wall was just really interesting to me because it was like, oh, how do we address climate change / different things happening
boy.
in the future? We build a wall that's like 3,000 feet tall. It's great. I don't know. It was cool.
So
to see.
anyway, I loved the use
Don't shake your head.
of clear framing in this film. I think a lot of movies nowadays are trying to do like the kind of especially in sci-fi, you like the crazy shots, the motion shots, the action shots. I just loved how
Like
a lot of the shots were
non-traditional
they were just a simple center frame,
Yeah.
a simple third frame, and it was
Yeah.
just very, very beautiful.
Perfect headroom. Let me tell you,
Perfect
I've been learning
headroom.
about framing and all this from my film classes,
and-
and I can establish in my head like what shots they're going for, and it
One
feels
of
nice
the
being
one of
able
the
to do
few
that.
films that uses Dutch angles and incorrect
Oh, Dutch.
incorrect what's that called? Angle? Is that
Panning,
angle?
tilting.
Panning whatever.
Dolly,
Doesn't know what he's talking
dolly
about.
can.
Dolly-
Wow, what a description.
like it uses those concepts very, very well and very effectively. Because they normally those two shots happen when Kay is having internal strife, and that just it fit perfectly.
You use your concepts very well, John.
Thank you.
That was really nice.
I'm kind of like speechless on the cinematography. It was amazing all around. I'm a big fan of wide shots and like very wide shots, and I liked all of those.
I remember when we were seeing Dunkirk earlier this year, and I remember looking over to Brandon at a few points and like, yeah, I'm here. Here I am. I remember looking over to Brandon at a few points, and I was just like, I would just look at him with that shocked, like, oh, like that kind of face. This movie, I think I might have done that once, but barely at all, because I was just so captivated by what was on the screen at all points.
It was a lot more subdued. It was a lot more cool.
Because there's a lot more stuff in a way.
And I think that fits the Blade Runner aesthetic very, very well.
Yeah. I think for me, I'm a sucker for quality establishing shots.
Right.
And I feel like with
there's a dichotomy here.
Against me.
well, not necessarily prolonged ones, just well done ones. I feel like with Las Vegas and San Diego specifically, those being obviously places that we didn't see in the first movie, I feel like the establishing shots really helped get a grip and a good understanding of what those settings entail.
And I think it's going to change. Like, I'm going to see this movie again. Like, I think I'm going to change my mind a little bit about the way I saw certain shots and, you know, what I focused on in different things. Because I'm going to be looking for different things. Because this was me trying to take in the story. This was me trying to take in as much as I possibly could. I'm going to go see it a second time, and I'm going to focus on, okay, what did I not notice in this scene the first time that I can notice now? And I think there's a ton of hidden little things. Because I remember that there's at one point where they have like all the vending machines that are down in like the center of LA or whatever, and I just remember seeing all this like really clever, cool stuff that like I wish I had time to like go over in my head, but they moved the plot so quickly. It's a 2.5 hour film, but the plot moved very quickly
and that
for
scene
me.
Specifically is when someone went to a CGI artist and said, "Hey, we need 36 different tiles of unique, multi-language little pictures for vending machines." Oh, okay, how long will it be on screen? Maybe 15 seconds.
That CGI artist went to
$7
his
grand.
hologram girlfriend and cried to her for a little bit.
I hit the mic by accident. I'm
joy
sorry.
And talking about moving the plot along quickly, how about that plot? I really...
Wow,
Great
what a
segue.
transition.
Hey,
Seamless.
you know, I'm not the best at this. But I really enjoyed like the story of the movie itself. It wasn't really a movie about Kay. For going into it, it felt like it was going to be like, oh, Kay's finding out his humanity. But it was more like, from the first movie of replicants gaining their sentience and becoming human, or more than human.
I think this had us asking deeper questions. That's the thing.
My thing with it, and we kind of covered it when we talked about the Revolution members coming up. I felt like when it was going through, it started out as a movie without a central plot. Sure, there was the driving action of we need to find the child, but it was more about exploring these different characters and their different lives and the different ways they interact with each other and themselves. But then, the Revolution thing just kind of got shoehorned in, and everything was like, no, it's all about the kid. Nothing else matters.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this movie was a continuation of 1982. Like, if they made this movie solely with the impressions from current day 2017, I think it would have been a very politicized thing. I think we would have had a lot more different kind of in your face messages, because it's kind of the way Hollywood is now. But this was a very much a response to the original Blade Runner and the problems that 1982 America, people, the world in general were having at the time. We were facing a different set of problems than we are now. Some of them are similar.
The Great Slave Riots of 1982.
No, but but you know what I'm saying?
Millions died.
The world, it's been 35 years. The world's a very different place. And I think this movie was better for the fact that it took, okay, what's the continuation of Blade Runner? Not how can we relate to people in 2017?
Oh, I totally agree. But I think the problem with it was that they started out very much that mindset of classic sci-fi. It's not really about the central plots, about the characters involved within the world involved with it. And near the end, they made it very 2017 to, in my opinion, push forward a sequel. By Revolution's here, it's all about the kid, get the kid.
Absolutely, that definitely felt shoehorned in as a modern day kind of sequel.
Yeah,
because that's the world we're in now. Is there's got to be sequels. There's got to be 3 or 4 of every.
It's like loot boxes and video games.
However, I will say, I wish the plot involved more of the actual the actual
titular.
the
You
daughter.
just wanted to say titular.
That's why I said titular. The daughter that Kay and till the end Decker.
Yeah,
and
I
love
want to
we're
learn
looking
more
for.
about her.
I thought she was a
I mean-
fantastic character. I thought she was acted
But
fantastically.
that's for the sequel.
Yeah, getting back, if this is
See,
going
but
to be a
that's the
sequel,
thing. I don't like that.
I
answer.
understand. I understand. If they wanted to get more into her, this movie would have been 4 hours long.
Or,
I
would've
would
watched
watch
it.
a good
I
Avatar,
probably would have
yeah.
watched it. But we have to be realistic about stuff. This movie was 2.5 hours as it is, right? They had all this stuff, all this development, filling in gaps from the old film, leading up to something new, just a little bit. Like, it did throw me off a little bit. It was like, we have this revolution. I was like, okay, is this how this movie's going to go for the rest of the time?
Right.
They cut away from it. I was like, oh, okay. So I had about 30 seconds where I was just like, all right, I'm taken out because I know, oh, God, somebody from Hollywood or some executive producer said, yo, throw this in here. I don't know. Maybe that was like the original idea for the film or whatever. But like, it did not affect me on the way I think it affected
well,
you guys.
my thing with it is like you have tons and tons and tons of character development, especially between Kay and Joy. That was once again, in my opinion, somewhat drawn out. And then,
Wrong.
as I said, like at the very beginning, the payoff is, well, it doesn't really matter because even though the start out about them, it's not about them. It's about the revolution that's going to happen. The character development
But
that we just
I
watched
don't
doesn't
think
matter.
I don't think that's what the movie
'Cause
devolved
if
into.
Blade
I think
Runner-
they mentioned it and it was like, okay.
Because if Blade Runner
Yeah.
2050 is a war movie, K doesn't matter.
You haven't said the year correctly once.
It's
I said the
2049.
sequel. The Blade Runner
Oh,
the
this is
sequel's
the
going to be
sequel
out
to be
2050.
2050? Nah, you know it's going to be like 2062.
2049 2.
2049-2.
2173.
Resurgence.
But going back to the what Logan was touching on, I think that's something movies can't necessarily do. Is when you have a movie that engages characters as much as this movie engages people like Kay and Joy, you can't touch on every character that much.
Yeah.
And I guess like going back to Wallace, like yeah, that bothers me a little bit, but I'm willing to let that slide because I understand you're not going to touch on every character.
And going back to the daughter, like if they had showed any more of her, you wouldn't have had that full shock factor realization like, oh my God, she was here the whole time.
I want to say
She's
something.
been lied to, everything.
Like I
John's
said,
going to be
come
like,
back to
I
it.
predicted it from the beginning.
Ooh.
I knew it. I wanted to see more. Let's see what he says.
I think she was used just the right amount, especially if they're going to use her in a sequel.
I agree.
Go.
He's speechless.
I didn't want to say it to Brandon in the middle of the movie because I didn't want to ruin his brain.
He knew from the beginning.
I called it.
Yeah.
No,
oh my
like I
God.
can understand where you're coming
I
from
totally
though, because
called
once
it.
she looks at his memory, she has
As
such
soon as
like,
I
a
saw
strong
the
reaction to it.
visceral reaction, I was like, 100% she is the child.
that
of him.
like
100%.
when you said it to me, I made that connection that like
Yes.
no,
See-
like if it wasn't her memory, she wouldn't have had such a strong
See,
reaction.
I'm
to it.
stupid, so I was like, "Oh, she's having a visceral reaction to a replicant realizing he's
Yeah.
human." That's what I
My
thought.
other thing
it
is like
was.
the circumstances around her character. It's one of those things where once again, like I was seeing the writing aspect of like, wow, they're putting like a ton of detail, specifically detail about how she's not allowed to go out in the real world into this character that's around for upwards of 5 minutes. Like, there's probably something more important here.
You know, I didn't realize it was her until like he's talking to the revolutionaries, and once we find out he's not the kid.
Right.
And it's
Yeah,
the
I mean,
daughter,
I
she was the only.
I realized it at that point
Yeah.
too,
It's
but
just-
like
it's
just
when
like
they're
the
talking-
initial thing.
They explicitly like, oh yes, I can't go out in the outside world and people can't come in because I have bad immune system.
John's the type of dude to pay more attention to like the small leaking plot lines and then forget about what the main movie is.
That's why I'm
Like
a
that's-
detective in Blade Runner 2016.
Oh, here we go. Oh, it's a prequel.
It's a prequel.
Oh my God.
But
That's a prequel to the original.
going to like the back to the main plot.
Right.
I think I'm gonna make a video game reference because that's what we do.
Oh, please do.
I-
I'm ready.
I was.
I'm sorry.
I feel like I pull a lot of stuff from BioShock because that's one of my favorite games ever made, and I at least play it once a year. And from the whole concept of a man chooses, the slave obeys,
Yeah.
it really touched on that a lot because Kay was a slave to Lieutenant what's her face? I don't remember her name, but he's just like
Josie.
what's her name?
Josie.
Lieutenant
They
Josie.
called her Madam though, so I don't know why the credits gave her a name.
No,
but-
I think Madam is just what I guess in this world they call like
Right,
the
but I'm saying
upper
like none of the
police.
characters called her Lieutenant Josie.
That's besides the point.
Whatever.
But
Weird credits things.
but
Wah.
I like the connection they made between the replicants being slaves and doing what they're told, as opposed to humans being human, and doing as they
Human.
please, human.
Wah.
And I was really, knowing I've played BioShock, I was really hoping for Kay to go up to Wallace and beat him down with a golf club.
Would you kindly?
Yeah, I don't know about that.
For anybody,
No,
for
but
anybody who doesn't play
what?
video games that much and is just listening to movies, enjoy your 2-minute break.
Since this is movies, I guess I can make another movie reference.
Oh, thank you.
And in doing that, it's the theme I've
Yeah.
noticed this year with War for the Planet of the Apes.
Scooby Doo. Okay.
Let him finish.
In the sense that not necessarily humans, but the things that humans have ultimately created or somewhat responsible for are more human than the humans are in most of these movies. Because in War for the Planet of the Apes, the apes are more human than the humans.
I mean, it gets into some really deep crap about what makes you human.
Exactly.
Is it the
choices?
Is it the skin? Is it the brain? Is it the heartbeat? Or is it what you feel inside? Is it your emotions? Is it because that's the thing.
Right.
Like, they were talking about K's a replicant, but he's feeling emotion. So clearly, it's not emotions in this universe that makes you human.
That comes to
He has-
Ex Machina.
Yeah, he has skin and blood, and he hurts and he feels pain and he bleeds. So that's not what makes you human.
Well, I think,
so what makes you human
I
in this
think
universe?
that's kind of the takeaway I got at the end of this movie is that the replicants have become more human than humans themselves,
Right.
and that's the connection I was making.
And as I said before, we really see that in the juxtaposition between Kay and Love. Kay is someone who feels guilt, who feels remorse, who feels anger, who feels happiness, and Love. I think I said Love.
Yeah.
And Kay is someone, for me at least, until the very end, for the entire movie, he only felt sadness.
Yeah.
That's all he knew until he figured out what being a human, at least for him, was, which is making actions, making choices that he felt were right.
This may be a big thing to ask of you guys because we just having this conversation. But in this universe, what makes in this universe, what makes I have my answer, so I'm gonna hold it. What makes you more human? What makes the replicants more human in this movie?
Deciding.
I think being almost more sympathetic and more understanding.
I agree. I thought it was kindness.
Yeah.
I thought kindness is the thing that is making them, because you look at Wallace as human, right?
I don't know.
He doesn't. Well, okay.
Is he
What
blind?
is.
Is he supposed to be blind?
Yeah.
I
And I
think
think he has the chips,
for me,
so he
yeah.
can see.
It
That was
implied to
really
me that
cool,
he
man.
kind of made himself blind. Maybe it seemed like one of those things. So it seemed like robot eyes.
I can see the world better if I can't
No,
see.
but
He's
I-
like one of those pricks that you're just like, this dude purposely cut out his eyes or something, or
I
really
totally
screwed up his vision so he could see better.
I really like the idea that what makes you human is making your choices,
Right.
because everybody, from what I gathered, everybody's stuck into what they're supposed to do.
Right.
Like
Obey.
Madam her job is to hunt down rogue replicants.
I was gonna say that.
Wallace's job is to make
Stole.
slave labor.
Right. But
Love's job is to make sure
Obey Wallace.
and make
Right.
sure Kay does his job. Deckard did his job, and now he's one of those rogue replicants.
Right.
Everybody's stuck in their ways.
And to
what makes
expand
you
on
human
that-
is making your own choices.
To expand on that first to joke, what makes them beyond human is the super punches. And now the real criticism.
But
We see in the film that I think, like, just canonly, decisions is the correct choice. Because the few humans we see in the film,
humans.
they directly make choices.
Yeah.
We see Madam, who, as Brandon said, her job is to hunt down rogue replicants, but she protects Kay. She protects Kay at every chance, sacrificing her own life to protect Kay.
Yeah.
And that
We
makes her
see
human.
we see Wallace, even though he's making these terrible decisions, and we see that interact with Love, he's still making choices. He has reasons for doing it, while Love is staying there just obeying. And she's struggling with, is it, like, do I need to act out more? Like, how do I get to make these decisions? She can't figure it out. And we see, ultimately, Kay figures it out. He decides, I'm not going to kill myself. I'm not going to go back to my programmed life. I'm going to make a change.
Yeah, he makes his own decisions to
And
do what he wants.
Even Deckard, he makes a change. He decides, because...
He ran away with Rachel at
Right.
the end of the movie.
Well, it's implied his
first
programming...
movie.
The OG movie.
Well, in this one, it's implied his programming that was by design, and the design was to leave her, and the only reason he was still in Vegas was the program was telling him, you're done, stay. But at the end, he made the choice to go back.
I think that's actually an interesting contrast between all the other the main replicants, and then Love. I think what you see is she's the only one who doesn't ultimately make her own choice, and even Joy ends up making a decision.
Right.
And you see her kind of be the one that goes down this not so great path.
Yeah.
I think that's telling.
And I think Joy's character arc is truly like the traumatic kind of. I mean, we talked about earlier. Like that was that was the most emotional part of the movie. Like she dies essentially, and it's just the way that they just painted. And this is a film that's making us ask these questions. Like we're asking. I might be a little bit over dramatic with it, but we're asking these deeper life questions, and it's shush. We're asking these deeper life questions, and it's just like there's not many movies where I have to like really decompress, sit down, think about this. Like Brandon and I were on the car on the way to the studio, and I just couldn't decompress. I couldn't talk about it because we were saving it for this.
Screaming a lot.
Yeah, it was crazy.
a lot.
But it's just because like there were so many layers to this film, and there was so many layers to the plot, the way the scenes went, the cinematography, the music, everything. And
like
so
all the layers.
This conversation that we have about what makes them more human than human, and we're like the decisions they make. And
Well,
I
the
was
super punches makes
Yeah.
them
Yeah.
more human
Yeah.
than human.
we're talking about logistically, but like
The human
just
the super punches.
and
I
the
like when Ryan
decisions weren't
Gosling
just
ran through the walls instead of the door.
That was
the
pretty fun.
decisions weren't just in their actions. It was the decision to feel, the decision to be kind, the decision to, protect this realm. Like Dave
Mhm.
Bautista's character in the beginning, like he made the decision that he was going.
You ever seen a miracle boy?
Yeah, he made the decision that he was going to die to protect what was necessary, and it was just
Right.
So did Madam, and she died real bad.
And she was a person.
all
I'm
right.
about to say there's only really two main like human characters.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
unless
just
you
it's
count
Madam
unless you
and
count
whatever the
Wallace.
hell Wallace is.
Unless you count Deckard as a human, but I'm still kind of like.
I think
Yeah,
it's replicas.
in the
Is
director's
Jared Leto
cut, they
human?
heavily
what
implied
Paul
that he is indeed a
Don't they
replicant.
straight
And,
up say in this one he's a replicant? Don't they
and
straight up say that?
no,
No.
they heavily imply that he is.
Yeah.
Well, they
And-
don't say you're a replicant, but doesn't he say like us and like we are and
No.
you're one of
I
us?
think they might actually have said.
But
that.
one
that
thing I
says
want
it.
to bring up that
Did
they
he
dropped
mean?
from the
Did he mean that he's a replicant, or did he mean that you're a free thinker?
Well, he was talking to
Replicant.
Kay, so
Did
No.
he mean that he's a replicant, or did he mean
One-
that he's a free thinker?
one thing that me and my dad made the connection is that if you're a regular human being, you're not going to survive punches from replicants.
from super punches.
Yeah, like in the first movie, Deckard is getting the crap beat out of him by one of the replicants
But
he's
he also
hunting down.
barely survives.
Oh, but one of the punches from one of those guys is gonna cave in your skull. Not if you're a replicant, because they're made super.
That's
beams.
true, because you look at Dave Bautista's
He
character.
super a
and-
guy through a wall.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
like
Ryan
Ryan Go-
Gosling just
he
shrugged
just
it
kinda
off.
gets
Put
up.
himself
that,
through a
that
wall.
brings me to
Was that dog a
Another
replicant?
another complaint I have with this film, and that's with the ending fight when Kay ends up taking a knife to the side and she drags it up. And he's just
Yeah.
able to swim
He
out
should be
there
able.
fast.
Yeah.
He swims out there faster than
Like
she
Michael
does and ends
Phelps.
up being able to outstrength her. And,
That was
Right.
my one
And
biggest
I'm
issue
choking
with
her,
the
yeah.
film.
My
It's
big
just
thing
like,
was-
how are you alive?
He got
Exactly.
gut shot. When you get gut shot, you die like
Exactly.
you die very slow, painful.
I'm not even mad at the fact that he's alive. It's just that
Right.
he's not only not alive, it's that
He should be
seems
immobile.
completely unaffected by it.
But he's also a replicant, so
He also got
I
super
give him
punches.
the suspension
The
of
movie
disbelief
pass.
there.
Yeah.
The
One
movie
thing
pass.
that I was kind of bummed out that they dropped from the first movie is the like glowing eyes that the replicants had to like identify that they were replicants without actually.
I think it's
being
because they
replicant.
moved on
Yeah.
for the models
Mhm.
to make it seem less
I guess,
noticeable
but
that they
even
were replicants.
did Dave Batista didn't even have the glowing. Well, I
No.
guess he
He
was
was
one of
Nexus
the
8 still.
one of the Deckard.
Yeah, they're all still at that
replicants.
point newer than any of the models.
I
Yeah.
guess that works out.
Yeah,
for me.
technically they are, because Deckard would be a newer model.
Yeah, and he didn't have the
Happy
glowing eyes
birthday.
either. So
Happy
thank you guys
birthday.
for clarifying that for
Happy
me.
birthday.
because they were all alive well past 4 years.
Yeah.
So
I want to hear more about the Gurkabach words, whatever that was. That David Bautista
Yeah.
went to. I want to know
The
about that.
Galatian whatever
Yeah.
thing. Oh god.
That sounded dope.
The
No.
Galactica.
No, but it's just I don't know. Like, I want more. I don't know if I want a direct sequel. I want
I
more.
don't.
I want more about the world. Like, what happened in
I
these
want more
30
about
years?
I
the
love this universe.
I want the
Yeah.
memory lady. I want more memory lady.
Can we get a spin-off that is actually just Starship Troopers?
Yeah, and I don't want some book lore like this is Halo or some BS.
I don't want some war lore like the second one's going to be.
But like, I mean, people may not be requesting. It's probably not gonna. It wouldn't make as much money as like a direct sequel. But like, if we saw a spinoff that wasn't LAPD, that wasn't all this random stuff. Like, it's just like this is how LA became to be a gross
No,
shithole.
no,
This is why San
no.
Diego's a trash city.
No.
We were doing so well, and then you just said
No.
poop hole.
I don't want Confederate States of America in this movie.
Hip 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 hip.
A great film, by the way. This has been go watch Confederate States of America, produced by FC Films.
So the whole
This-
point, if you're gonna take away anything from this spoiler cast, go watch
Decisions make you
Confederate States of
humans.
America.
Absolutely.
This has
Decisions
been
to make you human.
Episode 1 of Spoilercast, Spinnaker Spoilercast specifically for Blade Runner 2049 specifically. I'm John Tyler McCrone specifically. Going from my right this time, it's...
Billy Glenn.
Brandon Diaz.
Logan Anstead.
We'll check you out next time on the Flippity
We're
Flop.
checking them out.
We're checking you out. We're going to break into your house.
Thanks for making
Bye.
the human decision to watch this and listen to
That
the
was,
whole
that
thing.
was,
No,
that
you're-
was pretty bad.
You're
Yeah,
a
I know.
replicant.
All right, it's late. We're done. Bye.
You're a robot.
Thank you.
You had to listen to this. Don't worry about it.
Bye.